In this part of the world, we still have a long way to go around autism awareness and acceptance, but this is the importance of events like these. People like you, every single person in this room. You don't need to have a podium to raise awareness about autism. It starts with each and every one of us. And this is why every single person in this room is so critical to the movement. So right now, we're just gonna highlight, a few of the individuals who are driving this cause for autism awareness and acceptance. As we all probably know, Shades of Life Foundation has been doing so much in the field of autism, as far as not just raising awareness and fostering acceptance, but also raising funds for the families of indigent children who cannot afford autism diagnostics and intervention services. So the work that Shades of Life Foundation is doing is very important, very critical, and very necessary. The visionary behind Shades of Life Foundation is none other than Dr. Nwokolo. As most of us probably all know, she has been a forerunner in this industry, and her passion for the cause actually stemmed from, her daughter having autism and her trying to find ways, practical ways, to get her the help she needed without having to always, consult international experts. So as many of us may know, she gave up a lucrative career at Chevron after 20 years. She gave up a lucrative career to dedicate her life to this cause. So I'm gonna read the more formal profile for Dr. Nwokolo. She's very well accomplished, and if I continue to freestyle, we'll be here the entire day because she has had so many milestones in her career, and she has done such great work. But for the benefit of those in the room who may not really be aware of her achievements, I will read her bio. It's very long, very extensive, but I'll try my best to just pick up the highlights now. Dr. Eziafakaku Nwokolo is a board-certified behavior analyst and a qualified behavior analyst. She is the founder and CEO of Shades of Life Care Limited, a center that provides assessment, diagnosis, and intervention strategies to families with children who have behavioral challenges, autism spectrum disorder, and intellectual and developmental disabilities. The facility also offers training and supervision services to behavior analysts and technicians in Nigeria. Dr. Zifi founded the Shades of Life Foundation, an NGO created to give indigent families the financial support needed to provide their children with autism and other neurodivergent needs with access to the best therapy and resources. She is also the visionary and sponsor behind Ride for Autism, a campaign that aims to create a culture of awareness and acceptance for autism in Nigeria. In addition, she currently serves on the International Development Committee of the Qualified Applied Behavior Analysis Credentialing Board, and she's also a member of the Association for Behavior Analysis International. Through her work with Shades of Life Care, she's helping improve access to ASD and IDD support in Nigeria. She also builds and equips an army of behavior analysts in Nigeria who uphold this mission and strengthen it further. She holds a PhD in intellectual and developmental disabilities from the University of Kent, where her thesis focused on screening for autism and intellectual disabilities amongst the Nigerian adolescent population. Her thesis represents a significant milestone in Nigeria, as this study is the first of its kind in the country and will help support diagnosis and intervention for autism and other intellectual disabilities, because it highlights the need to create a more comprehensive screening methodology for Nigerians and Africans that is culturally appropriate. Additionally, she has an MSc in Applied Behavior Analysis, Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities, also from Kent University. A renowned thought leader in the IDD and ASD space, she has given presentations of her work at different conferences, including the Association of Behavior Analysis International 44th International Conference in San Francisco, and various other international spaces as well. Also, she's bilingual, in case you didn't know. She's fun-loving, she's adventurous, and she's a lover of languages. She's also happily married with 3 children. So without further ado, let us welcome the amazing, the visionary, Dr. Wokolo.
Thank you, Janet, you're always. Good morning once again. There's something that I learned in the course of training that they said, don't diminish yourself. Anytime they start reading all that long stuff, I always tell them to just hush, I beg, just get straight to the point with my name. But I then stopped doing that when I did some training. So thank you for that brief intro. I want to start by welcoming everybody once again. My people from Cyclotron, Riding for Life, our siblings, Psychology, and the greater community known as Pit Stop, and I don't know, City Cyclists. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the members of the board that are here. Without their support and questioning me when I want to do stuff, we may not be moving forward. So thank you, members of the board. The board chairman, Mr. Zubi Mosu, is here. There he is. And I have Mr. Wokolo, who has to keep up with me and all the things, the brain waves that I get. He's here. Thank you for massive support. And the girls are asleep, but thank you, girls. So I'll get straight to, they made me write a speech, so I'm going to read it. Bear with me. Today, as we gather for the 4th annual Ride for Autism event of Shades of Light Foundation, it's indeed refreshing and truly inspiring to stand here, surrounded by individuals who not only support this cause, but are actively riding for it. We're doing more than cycling. We are pushing forward a movement, a commitment, and a collective promise and campaign to make the world a better place for individuals on the autism spectrum. April 2, World Autism Day, is beyond a date on the calendar. It is a call to action, a reminder that true inclusion is not just about awareness, but about the everyday decisions we make as individuals, families, communities, and societies. Inclusion is not something that can happen out of the blues. It requires intentionality, effort, and a willingness to change the existing conditions and systems of the society. This aligns with the SDGs, particularly in ensuring quality education, reducing inequalities and building inclusive communities where no one is left behind. For too long, many autistic individuals and their families, and I dare say I'm a member of that community, I have a 24-year-old daughter who's autistic, have struggled not because of their diagnosis, but because of the barriers society places in their way. Today, we write to break those barriers. We write to amplify unheard voices, to make the invisible visible. As we know, autism isn't visible like most other disabilities. We write to create pathways where there were none, and to build a future where autistic individuals are not just acknowledged, but fully accepted, supported, and catered for. But we can't stop here. This commitment must extend beyond today. April 2 is not just a moment, it represents an ongoing movement. A movement towards policies that protect, educational systems that support, workplaces that include, and communities that uplift. It's about changing the narrative around inclusivity from a discussion held once a year to a lifestyle practice every day. Today, as we move forward, let every turn of the wheel serve as a reminder that change starts with us. A community's strength is measured by how well it supports its most vulnerable. Let's be the generation that doesn't just talk about inclusion, but actively builds it into the very essence of our world. And again, thank you all for being here, for riding, for standing with us, and for proving that together we can create a world that is inclusive in its thinking, its actions, and its essence. So we ride for awareness, we ride to educate, we ride for acceptance, and we ride to take action. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So right now, I would like to introduce our second distinguished speaker by the name of Michelle Obatoyimbo, General Manager, Deepwater Operations, Chevron Nigeria Limited. Please let's have a hand for her. She couldn't be here in person, but she will be joining us virtually via Zoom shortly. While she's joining us, I'm just gonna read her bio. Michelle Obatoyimbo is currently the General Manager of Deepwater Operations at Chevron Nigeria. Michelle received her bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Lagos in 1992 and joined Chevron the following year. Her career in Chevron has spanned roles in Nigeria and the United States of America, where she has held numerous technical and management positions of increasing scope and responsibility. In addition to her technical and management roles, she has experience across different areas of the business, having taken on cross-functional roles in business and strategic planning, project management, talent management, and leadership development. She was invited to join the Board of Trustees of the Museum of the Southwest in Midland, Texas, an institution focused on growing art, science, history, and culture in 2017. She served on the board for 18 months. Over the years, she has served as the Chevron Women's Network sponsor in multiple locations in her organization, while mentoring and sponsoring a diverse range of females. As an engineer who was very often either the only female or one of the very few female engineers at university and early in her career, she is extremely passionate about driving transformational change in the workplace, that will result in advancement of female leaders in the workplace. As a mother of a neurodiverse young adult son, her passion for diversity is all-encompassing, extending beyond gender. Michelle is married with 2 sons and enjoys music, traveling, photography, and spending time with family and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to Michelle Obatoyimbo. So we have in our midst the fabulous Michelle Dede. I'm sure we are all familiar with her brilliant work on screen. So I'm just gonna quickly breeze through her profile. So Michelle Dede is an award-winning actor, TV host, event MC, and advocate for autism awareness and gender-based violence prevention. From hosting TV shows like Big Brother Nigeria, Moments on Ebony Life TV, the MTN Family Game Show, to hosting events for Google, Verb Clicquot, UBA, Lancome, and Gucci, and starring in productions including Blood Sisters 2, What Lies Within, Hush, Up North, Desperate Housewives in Africa, and a string of other notable productions. She's made her mark in entertainment. Off-screen, she actively supports autism awareness and has worked with NGOs including Patrick's Speech and Languages Center, WARIF, Stand to End Rape, and the 300 Project to drive meaningful change. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to Michelle Dede.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, you're responding, I like that. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. And initially I had planned something, but I thought it's always best to speak from the heart, which is what I'm going to do. We just had another Michelle speak about her personal experiences as a parent of an autistic child. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience as a sibling of a loved one on the spectrum. My eldest sister, Mickey, is on the spectrum, and I think I only realized that there was a difference between myself and her when I was probably about maybe 11 or 12. I knew that there was some difference when I was younger, but because she's my elder sister, I didn't know what that difference was. And you know, when you're a child, and I'm sure those of you who do have children that are on the spectrum, you may have other children who will ask questions or may not ask questions. So I think there's a tendency for a lot of people, a lot of parents in Africa, not to actually educate their younger children or even older children about their loved one on the spectrum. So because I was a very shy and introverted child when I was younger, it's ironic that I do what I do for a living now, there were times when I was afraid to ask my father questions. I was raised by my father, we all were, and I was afraid to ask questions, but I noticed certain differences with my sister. And Mickey is not, she's nonverbal, but I would say she's quite advanced in some ways for someone with autism. Maybe now because we live in Nigeria, it's more noticeable, but when we were younger, it wasn't particularly noticeable. But obviously as a sibling, I would notice. And I would notice when maybe friends or other children would stare at her because she had done something in particular in a way that was different from the way we would do it. And so about the age of 11, 12, I asked my father, I said, you know, why doesn't Mickey speak? Why doesn't Mickey go to the same school as my older siblings? Why is she still with me? Because I was with my dad as we flew to different countries and lived in different countries. Why wasn't she going with the older children? And he explained to me, you know, Mickey has something that's called autism, and I didn't understand it. So obviously he did his best to explain to an 11-year-old child. And my understanding was, okay, Mickey just doesn't speak, and something is different, but he never used the word wrong. And that was one of the things that I appreciated about my father. So one of the lessons that he had instilled in me quite, at that age was that he said, if anybody treats her differently, I just want to make sure that you don't treat her differently. There will be times where you will have friends who may want to make fun of her. And so at that early age of 11, 12, I started developing a sense of sort of protection of her, even though she's much older, where if my friends were a bit awkward around them, I would become defensive. But so you had an 11-year-old defending someone that was almost 20. But I did so, and it continued. And as I got older, that happened more often. I remember getting into a fight, not physical, but verbal fight, with a friend when I was about 15, who had said, oh, and I don't want to use the term that friend had used to describe Mickey, and I was extremely offended and asked the person to leave our house. Of course, my dad was there, and he's like, okay, this is one of your closest friends, what's happening? And I said, oh, she called Mickey this term, and I want her to leave. So he explained to me, you can't just fight with her and ask her to leave the house, that's not how it works. And maybe it's because I'm Nigerian and this person was a foreigner, I was like, she should bounce. But he did explain, and from there I learned you will have many situations like this as you get older where people will want to make fun of her. People will want to put her down, and it is your job as your sister to treat her the same way you treat your other siblings, your other two siblings. You treat her with the same respect because she's older than you. Even though there are certain things that she can't do that you are able to do, doesn't mean that she is less than you or that you are better. So one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is because when I moved to Nigeria in 2010, I was back and forth doing work here, but when I moved here in 2010 and I started working on different TV shows or being interviewed, if the topic of disability came up, I would always speak about my sister, Mickey. And a lot of my colleagues and a lot of other people had said to me, you shouldn't speak about it publicly. And I couldn't understand why. Said, oh, one day in future you're going to want to get married. If the person finds out that you have, a sibling with a disability, it might be a problem. What if it's hereditary? And I said, well, first of all, it's not hereditary to my knowledge. And secondly, if the person that potentially wants to marry me has a problem with my sibling, then that person isn't the one for me. And that's the way I feel about friendships. That's the way I feel about relationships. It's not an easy journey in that respect, but I have stuck to my way of thinking, and I thank my father for instilling that in me, in us. And as I progressed in my career, I continued to speak about it publicly, irrespective of the fact that I was being asked not to. But in the course of living here, I realized that a lot of people weren't talking about it enough, and I couldn't understand why. So then I had to extend grace to some of these people and say, okay, Michelle, you didn't grow up in Nigeria. Yes, I lived in Ethiopia where things were bad, honestly, as far as having a loved one with disabilities. But I found that it was worse in my own country. And that was what was very shocking to me and very upsetting. So it was at that point that I made the decision that I was going to speak about it more often in public at every opportunity that I had, and then also work with different NGOs who were doing the work that needed to be done. So the first person that I had met at the time was Mrs. Akande, who runs Patrick Speech and Language Center. So I went to the center, I spoke to her, I saw a lot of children there. I made sure that when my sister, who lives in Abuja with my dad, came to Lagos, she had the opportunity to go there. And I just started to do more and more. GTB Autism Conference approached me and asked me to get involved with speaking. And that conference was an eye-opener, I remember, because I spoke very openly about my experiences there. And there were a lot of parents in the audience who came to me at the end and they said, I have a child with autism. How are you able to talk about it publicly? This is your sister. I'm ashamed. And I thought, I understand. I can't understand or empathize in the way that you are dealing with the situation because I'm not a parent. And I know that it's 10 times harder for parents, 10 times harder than it is for a sibling. But I felt that it was important to explain to those parents that you can't neglect your other children because of your loved one that is on the spectrum. You have to include your children that aren't on the spectrum and make sure that you educate them, make sure that you inform them constantly. It's a constant process till they are old enough to then research and learn themselves like I did, where you include them in everything that you're doing. You educate them and get them to understand in the same way that I was able to. And a lot of mothers are saying, oh, life in Nigeria is hard. I get it. I understand that. And it's harder in some ways than it is when you're living abroad. But if my father, who raised 4 children by himself, and 3 girls, those that have female children, is harder in some ways, I'm sure you know, especially young children when they're going through puberty, etc. To be taking care of 3 young children who are female, and then the eldest a male child, but still include them. So that was the one thing that I felt that's very important. And I don't know, please show of hands if there are any parents here who have more than 1 children, and then you have 1 child that's on the spectrum. Please just raise your hands. Anybody? Okay, if you don't have children, do you know anybody that's on the spectrum? Okay, some people there. Okay, I'm assuming that most of you are just here to support. So if it is that you ask your close friends, those of you who don't have loved ones on the spectrum, if they have a loved one on the spectrum, if it's something that you're passionate about, it has to be that you're passionate about it. Ask questions. Because the thing with autism is that there are adults that have been diagnosed with autism later in life. If you look in this brochure, there's mention here of a few people who are on the spectrum, who you may or may not have known that they were on the spectrum. And I don't think there's anything wrong with just educating yourself, even if it's not specifically about autism, but maybe about disabilities. Because I didn't know much about Down syndrome until I met someone, a parent who has a child on Down syndrome, so I started asking questions. I don't have a loved one who has Down syndrome, but I wanted to know more. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with knowing more, because you may have a colleague that is on the spectrum who may not, display certain traits later in life. Even you that are sitting here, even me. There's every possibility that any one of us in this room at some point later in life, within the next 6 months, it could happen. And then you find out as an adult, you're a working adult, that you have certain traits and you are on the spectrum. So I don't think there's anything wrong with educating yourself. But for those of you who have children that are on the spectrum, especially if you have other children who aren't on the spectrum, please involve your children. Please rid your minds. I know we're Nigerians and society is a big deal, and you have all these stigmas, which quite frankly I think is absolute rubbish. But perhaps I see things differently, as I said, because I didn't grow up here. I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of. And if I, as a 15-year-old child, and later as an adult now in my 40s, can say, well, if you have a problem with me because I have a sibling on the spectrum, you aren't my friend. I'm not asking you to take care of my sibling or be involved in her life. But if it is that you don't want to have anything to do with me because I have a sibling on the spectrum, then you aren't my friend. You aren't my partner. I've been in that situation before, where a boyfriend found out because I was having a conversation with him. He was asking me, why are you constantly advocating? I said, well, aside from the fact that I have a sibling on the spectrum, when I moved to Nigeria and I realized what the situation was, that was what led me to advocating publicly about it. And he was like, disability, God forbid. I mean, his reaction was disgusting, quite frankly. And I tried to be calm, but then I thought, this is clearly not the person for me. Even if I educate him, I take the time to enlighten him, and he still feels disgusted and is, abhorred by the situation. That's somebody who's not going to open their minds to it. And it may be easier said than done, I understand, because you have extended families who may not understand. You have your peers who may not understand. But we are all adults in here, and I think as adults who are emotionally intelligent, we should be able to come to a decision and say, okay, this is somebody who's going to be an acquaintance. If you have someone who's saying, oh, don't bring that your child to this event, then maybe I'm not coming to that event. Do I really need to be there? Like I said, it's easier said than done, but one step, little step every day. I don't know if anybody has any questions, or if I need to maybe speak more about my experiences. Yes, Mickey is older. Maybe it's easier for me somehow now that I live, a life that's separate from the sort of family unit. If I'm going to speak just a little bit about some experiences I had. I remember when a couple of years ago I was traveling with her from Abuja to Lagos, and we're on the plane. And I had just been recovering from major surgery, so this is 2 months after recovery. I had told my dad I want to bring Mickey to Lagos with me. I think she needs a change of environment. And he insisted, you need time to recover. And I said, no, I'll be fine. So we're on the plane together, and honestly, I wasn't fine. And because of how Mickey is, she needs to use the toilet, and it's sudden, so she flies out of the, airplane seat and is looking for the toilet. Has an idea where it is, and walks in, and somebody's there, and obviously she wants the person to come out because she's really desperate to go to the toilet. I was almost falling asleep. Luckily enough for me, one of the flight attendants had noticed, okay, she was talking to her and she wasn't responding, and she tapped me on the shoulder and said, your sister's trying to go to the toilet. And I went in, and Mickey had found her way to one of the other toilets and didn't know how to lock the door, and had pulled down her trousers and sat down and was using the toilet. So she and I were both trying to close the door and everything. So things like that will happen. Was it inconvenient? Yes, I'm human, I'm not gonna lie. Was it a little bit embarrassing? Yes, it was. But I couldn't think, oh, I'm Michelle, actress, people are good. That was not in my mind. It was just, this is the situation, how do you deal with it now? So we will all have different situations that we will be in. Some will be embarrassing, but they will not kill you. The situation will not kill you. So for me, I think the most important thing is you have to sort of get to a place of absolute, if that's possible, absolute acceptance, especially if you have a loved one with autism. It is a difficult journey, especially for parents. It's so much easier for people like me, for the siblings. Not that it's a walk in the park, because it's challenging, and there are times, even when I go and visit and, spending time with her, and I find that now one of the things that she does, strangely enough, older in life, is that she tends to copy me a lot. She will copy if I'm wearing green, and let's say I've gotten dressed after she has, she will want to change into something that's green. And I noticed that it was irritating me, and I literally wanted to just make it shout at her and say, stop copying me. But I have to remember the way her brain works is different than mine, and if there's any reason why she's copying me, the youngest child, from my mother, maybe it's some form of her wanting to be closer, I don't know. But then it's for me to then ask questions and find out, and trying to extend to her the grace that I extend to everybody else, my friends, etc. So for me, acceptance is very important. Awareness is very important, but acceptance, because in this part of Africa, there isn't enough. People tend to want to sweep it under the carpet and, hide it. Oh, I have a child with a disability, let me keep them away from the other children. If the other children are going out, oh, let me keep this child at home. I'm sorry, you're not helping your child. You're not. You're actually making the situation worse. So as difficult as it is, especially if your loved one is nonverbal, they're your loved one. You have to love them in the same way that you love your other children. And you have to show that love, and you have to teach your other children or friends, etc., to extend that same grace, that same love that they give to you, to your loved one on the spectrum. I don't know if anybody has any questions specifically for siblings on the spectrum so that I can answer them. Does anyone have any questions that they may want to ask? Anybody in the back? Those of you talking in the back? While I'm speaking, I can see you. Anyone have any questions? Please ask them, because I think this is a safe enough space for people to ask questions, and it's an opportunity to pick everybody's brains that are here. Nobody? Okay. All right. Do you have any questions? Is there anything you would like me to talk about specifically? Or are you good? Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing, please. I don't know if you've seen these brochures, because as I was reading through, I thought, Nigerians, something many Nigerians don't know. They assume if someone is on the spectrum, they can't, as she's spoken, as Michelle earlier spoke about her son who went, to Dartmouth and is studying psychology. They assume, how can he be on the spectrum? Famous people in the West that are on the spectrum: Anthony Hopkins, the actor, who I'm sure a lot of you know. Bill Gates, who I'm sure a lot of you know. Mozart. Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. So I think that's proof that you can be different. These are people that have accomplished things that many of us here, nobody in here, to my knowledge, has done what Mozart did, or can do what Mozart did. Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, because it's those people that you mentioned in Nigeria. People are like, how? I don't know anybody, personally, maybe there are other people in the room, I don't know anybody personally who has achieved what Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates has done. Yet these are people that are on the spectrum. In my industry, Anthony Hopkins, nobody in my industry has achieved what that person, but that's a man that's on the spectrum and was diagnosed much later in life. So people are different who are on the spectrum, but it doesn't mean that we are better. That's the thing for me that's important. We are not better. We are different, they are different too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for that very insightful discussion. And truly, we can all see that, autism is a condition that it just means that they are neurodivergent, but it doesn't change the fact that we are all human beings and we all deserve love and respect. All right, so with no further ado, we're going to move to item number 7, which is food, because I know we're all a bit hungry. So there are 3 food stations in different parts of the hall. You can approach any of the tables to have your breakfast. Thank you so much.
Please get the food so we can be out of here in how many minutes? 10? We've overshot, yes. It's very light, it's light meal, so I think we'll be able to just chew really quickly and be out. Thank you. My name is Ezia Fakakunwokulo, Dr. Zifi, as I'm known. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm also the founder and CEO of Shades of Light Foundation and Shades of Light Care, where we offer assessments, intervention, diagnosis, training, both to families and professionals. This is Ride for Autism, the 4th edition. It was just something that started like a little seed, me being a cyclist, and I thought, I can get the community to do this on behalf of people that are autistic. And why do we do that? A lot of people have a misconception of what autism is. They always, when they hear autism, they think either spiritual or psychiatric condition or just bad parenting, or they try to have a physical attributes that they can hold on to. But you see, autism is invisible. If I showed you my daughter today who's autistic, you wouldn't know that she's on a spectrum, and that's because autism has no visible features. And so that's one reason why we ride, because in the process of riding and having that attention, people are like, what's autism? And we can talk about it and let them know that it's not visible, so we're the ones amplifying their voices by speaking and making autism visible. Like I said, this is the 4th edition. I'm happy that today There are nearly like 200 cyclists riding for this cause, something that started with like 20 cyclists, the first edition, 40, 60, and today we have 4 cycling communities coming together for the cause. And it's also an opportunity to educate. People may wonder, cyclists, elites, but I found that, it doesn't matter what level you are in society. The fact that people just don't understand autism leads us to educating. Yes, there's awareness because we're riding, people mention it, but it goes beyond awareness for me. Education is key because when we sit down and speak to people and share experiences, they're able to really go away with that wow moment. Oh, this is different from what I thought it was. So that's the reason I write, and that's the reason we have everybody here today. Just because I'm a parent, but there have been professionals around. For my daughter is 24, so you can imagine there are people that have been here longer than 24 years doing some service. However, it's just mentioning autism. Like I said, that's awareness. So people are walking today. People are, the organizations doing all sorts of things for autism. But what I find is that yes, it's a tip of the iceberg. It's not really going down, especially for communities where I have been to, belong. I'm not just speaking of maybe the low income, any level, middle income, high income. They hear the word. Now people are beginning to hear the word autism. So they'll tell you, oh, I know autism, I've heard of it. Okay, after you've heard, what next? So it's not enough to just hear. You need to understand, you need to live with something. So that's why we do this. Have people explain. We have parents share their experiences. So when they share their experience, we even have autistic individuals come and speak. So when they see the autistic person, they're like, oh, is this autism? Because, I don't know what goes on in people's minds or brains when they hear autism, what they think it looks like or should look like. So that's one of the reasons why we do this. And then we have siblings. Like this time, we have a sibling as well. Last year, we had a sibling. We keep changing the siblings, the audience, so that impact will keep going. And when you look at people say, oh, that this thing is on the increase in Nigeria. I don't think it's on the increase. It's just like I said, that awareness. People are hearing the word and they're like, oh, this one says autistic, this is, but it's not increasing. It's been there forever. Think about people like Amadeus, Mozart. There are people that Einstein's and co. These are people that were on the spectrum. So it's not a new concept. It's not new to Nigeria. It's been here. It's just not been in the fore of events. So that's why we're now pushing to have it more in people's face. Yes, the biggest challenge is, like, for the foundation, we do free assessments and diagnosis for those that can't afford it because it's really, really expensive. So access to the resources that we require is something that limits. But at the end of the day, when we call for funds, we have communities like Pit Stop, we have people like Leadway, we have a partner play with Steven. He does golf, so he swings for autism. So these are people that have come to our aid for us to be able to continue doing the work that we do. It costs a minimum of 1 million to have a proper diagnosis, from screening to diagnosis for one individual. If they were to go outside of the country to have an autism diagnosis, they're not going to be spending anything less than $3,000 to $4,000. Okay, so you can compare 4,000 to how many people are going to be able to afford that. But with the good donations and goodwill of the communities that have been involved with, we keep pushing. Last year, we were able to give assessments and screening to 18 families that benefited. And this year we're pushing for like 50, to see how far we can go. So yeah, finance is a big challenge, but we have supporters and we welcome more supporters. Unfortunately, and it's just not Nigeria, there's no data in Africa. So there are other Africans that I'm collaborating with to see how we can get the research going, because even to get diagnostic material is also expensive. But what I can tell you is that WHO says is 1 in 100. There's a global figure that's 1 in 63. In the US is 1 in 36. But to break it down, I did a quick statistics. We say that we're about 16 million in Lagos. If you use a 50%, which is the age of 0 to 26, okay, child to adolescent, and do 50% roughly of 16 million in Lagos, that's 8 million. If you then apply the ratio of 1 in 100, you're probably going to be looking at something close to, your guess is as good as mine. Divide 8 million by 100. You're going to be looking at something like 800,000, right? Let's even assume that it's not 800,000, it is 100,000. It's still a lot. And this is just using data that, applying the WHO ratio, which is quite high in terms of, 1 in 100 relative to 1 in 36. So it's you can't really say the exact number. The best we can do is to guesstimate, using, and this is just Lagos. So if you apply that WHO to the projected population of Nigeria, which is 200 million, and you say about 100 million age 0 to 26, you see where I'm going with the numbers. So it is enormous, and it doesn't choose class or cadre or anything. So we're looking at people from the grassroots all the way to elite. I know a couple of wealthy people who have individuals, children on the spectrum. I've also seen the man in the market or the woman in the market who has an autistic child and doesn't know what to do. Again, attributing it to all sorts of things, spiritual, witchcraft, in-law, whoever, but it is really none of those. It's just a neurodevelopmental disorder that we don't understand, not just in Nigeria, but globally. It's still a myth, it's still a challenge, but we're moving towards just trying to figure it out. A lot of the work has come out of the private sector, but what I can tell you is that last year we had some collaborative work with Lagos State, where we've gone into schools. We went into both the secondary and primary schools to speak to their counselors and teachers. There were over 500 teachers, at least get them to understand what the red flags are so they don't end up just saying that, giving a child a bad name and saying they are not teachable or that sort of thing. So I can speak of Lagos State. There are some other state governments that we're also reaching out to see how they can bring us on board, at least to educate the community. I believe in that when people are educated and they know what they're up against, it would change that mindset and would, just a paradigm shift, and we begin to get somewhere.
My name is Busola Shongunuga, and I'm a veteran from the Pit Stop community. Pit Stop community is a community of cyclists here in Lagos, and we've come out here to support the initiative that has been taken to support the autism, the awareness of autism, particularly today. As a community, we believe in doing good for humanity, and we believe that everybody needs to be good for something, and we are bringing our good out to support this cause. As we all know, autism is highly stigmatized in Nigeria and Africa in general. And if we care to actually pay attention, we might find out that a lot of us are only 1 or 2 persons away from children or people who have autism. I think that we can't do anything about the past, but we certainly can change the future of people who are on the spectrum. And so we are out here today to collaborate with Dr. Wonkolo for the autism awareness, just so that more help can come into that space, more people can talk about it, and the stigma generally can be erased, hopefully one day completely, especially here in Africa. This is the first time that Pit Stop as a community has participated in this ride, and I would also like to use the opportunity to thank the leadership for giving us the opportunity to come out and rally for a good cause. And I'm sure that in future we will look forward to doing this, supporting with our presence and our presence, and hopefully it will be bigger in the future. We're hoping for bigger things for this campaign.
My name is Temitope George. I'm the captain of Psychology Cycling Club. I'm a lawyer. Today, we partnered with Cyclotron, Shades of Life, Pit Stop Community, City Cyclists, in fact, the entire cycling community, to support a good cause, to ride for autism. Incidentally, World Autism Day was on Wednesday, 2nd of April. We've been doing this for years. We did this with cyclotron and city cyclists last year. And as a club, Psychology has been cycling for autism for many years. We used to do that when we were sponsored by GTB. We did that 1 year. And then we also did it another year with the Benoit Foundation. So it's a good cause. As a club, we don't just cycle for fun, we cycle for healthy lifestyles and for social impact. So having an opportunity to ride as one community for autism was something every member of the club was eager to be part of. We know that even as members of our club, people are living with autism. We have members of our club who have children who are living with autism. In our communities, there are people living with autism talking to the MD or the founder of Shades of Life Foundation, a lot of the time it goes undiagnosed. So this kind of event is a good opportunity to create awareness and for people where necessary, they have to get the diagnosis and so that they can live more effectively with autism. What's particularly special about this year is that there were over 100 riders on the road. So all cyclists from all the communities, cycling communities in Lagos came out for a good cause. And that's, I would say, this year is the first time that we have this huge turnout. So it must be because a lot of people are beginning to discover that they have autism. And so this is an important cause to support and to be part of. Sometimes they've been described as socially awkward, but it's because they're on the spectrum of autism. So with organizations like Shades of Life, with causes like this, shining a spotlight on it and creating awareness, hopefully a lot more people who have been described as socially awkward will come to Shades of Life and get a diagnosis. It's important that government also supports initiatives like this. For instance, it was World Autism Day on the 2nd of April. I didn't know anything about it. I don't know what the state government or federal government did about it to celebrate it. And we celebrate other, days, other national events, but we didn't celebrate this. So perhaps it's something that government needs to take seriously and do something about it. We also invite other clubs to join us. We have placards where we say that, look, give person chance. We have placards in different languages, in local languages, so that bus drivers and other motorists realize that cyclists also have rights to the road. So Share the Road, our Share the Road campaign typically comes up around World Bicycle Day, which is on the 3rd of June. So we'll be celebrating it around that time. We've done it in we did it last year in 2 bus parks. We were at Oworo Bus Park, and then the last one as Yaba Bus Terminal. And it garnered a lot of support from even bus drivers. So now we Share the Road caps. We have Share the Road stickers, which they put on their buses. And you'd find that a lot of the time when we're riding now, buses will say, no, they're cyclists, so give them chance, because of the awareness that we've created with the Share the Road campaign. And I'm sure that with the awareness that rides like the Ride for Autism creates, people will be more empathetic when it comes to issues like autism. People will stop saying things like, the person is socially awkward, this person is somehow. There's usually a reason for it.